Welcome back to Getting Started with IgorBox. In the last video, we showed you how to create a studio, manage your studio, the difference between admin, editor, etc. And in this video, we're going to show you how to add a controller to your new studio. As you can see, we're here at Frank's lab, and we have 0 controllers. At the bottom left of your screen, you can see that we actually have a controller there. That's a brand new controller, has not been set up yet, and we're going to add it to our account. On the bottom of the controller, there's a serial number label with a QR code and also a setup token. You can scan the QR code. It'll automatically get you to this page, to the Add Controller page, but we're just going to use the setup token directly. So I'm going to go to Add Controller. Yes, I have a setup token, and I'm going to put it in here. You can see it's looked it up. It sees the serial number is 00024, which is what we expect. It is an LED controller. We're going to do the LED controller first here. And we're going to name this, and we're going to name this thing, I don't know, let's see, light panel. And we can add some tags. We want to say it's in the front room. Maybe we're going to say that it is LEDs. I don't know. That's useful later for sorting and finding things that are relevant. All right, so we're going to add this to our account. And now you can see that it has been added to our account. And it's not online, obviously, it's still off. You can see in the bottom left there. But before we power it on, I want to show you how to use magic provisioning to set up your Wi-Fi automatically. So we're going to go to the configuration tab, and you can see that there's Wi-Fi credential here, and it is choosing your default credential, which we set up in the last video for main building, which is NSA data collection service. If you only have one, just leave this set as default. If you have multiple, you can then set this to basically whichever one this controller is supposed to get, or you can skip it. I would suggest not skipping it. You really want to have the Wi-Fi credentials added to it just in case you need to swap to Wi-Fi in the future. So we're going to leave it at default here. I'm going to go back to the overview page. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in an Ethernet cable that is plugged into my router, which is going to give access to the controller to the internet, and we're going to power it on. Now, this is a brand new controller, so it's going to power on. That is our test boot light show. We call it the light show. And now you can see that we are blinking with a blue blinking status LED on the left there. That means that we're in a degraded state. It means that we are still trying to establish a connection back to IgorBox.com. We have not established a connection back to IgorBox.com. In normal operation, a degraded state means your shows will continue. It's just not going to update or be accessible from IgorBox.com. IgorBox.studio. All right, so now you can see that we're online. And for a split second there, you saw a purple flashing LED and then went green. The purple flashing LED means that the controller is in administrative lockout, and it will do that when it needs to download configuration, download firmware, download media files. So what it did was it communicated with our provisioning server, and the provisioning server told it essentially where it was provisioned. It's provisioned at frankslab.igorbox.studio. It configured itself with that. It then went to your studio, to frankslab.igorbox.studio, negotiated a secure connection, and set itself up and said, I need my configuration. It got its configuration. It updated its configuration, which included your Wi-Fi credentials in this case, and it has come online. Now, here is the magic of the magic provisioning. Because if I unplug the Ethernet cable now, it will swap over to Wi-Fi. Now, as you can see, we went back to degraded state. It is flashing blue, letting you know that it is no longer communicating with IgorBox. And now it has swapped over to Wi-Fi. It's connected to our Wi-Fi router, and it has reconnected to the IgorBox uplink for your studio, and it is back to green, and you saw that it flashed that it was back online. So we're back online. So the reason why we did this was because, sometimes you need to use Wi-Fi, and configuring Wi-Fi can be kind of a pain. There are other ways to configure Wi-Fi. You can go look at it on help.igorbox.com. But this is by far the easiest way. And, sometimes you don't want to be dinking around with your phone out in the field and in front of it, right? You can just bring it into your office, plug it into your Ethernet, turn it on, let it provision itself, grab the credentials, and then unplug it, take it where you need to go, plug it back in, and it will come back online, right? So we're all set here. We're now in Wi-Fi mode. So now, for the next bit of the video, we're going to go through what all of these different tabs are, and we're going to start on the overview page. So as you can see on the overview tab here, this is the first tab. You can see we have the name of the controller, we have a system ID, we show that it is online, and we can click edit, which will allow you to change the name, description, your tags. You can also change the firmware track here. I would suggest staying on stable because beta may not be stable for production use. Under that, we have various different tabs. We'll explore those in a minute. We see that the system status is nominal. It's running great. It's been up for 4 minutes now. It's online. It's on current firmware version 2.0.5, and we have a start manual control button. And you can see up here that all of this data has been updated. It's getting updated about once a second when you're on this page. We'll talk about manual control in a second. We'll circle back on that. First, we'll look at the channel states. You can see that these are all of the channels, and on an LED controller, it's 0 to 100%. On an output controller, which we'll have in a later video, you'll see that it is either off or on. Same for inputs up here, and we have audio down here. In the next section down here, we have some telemetry information. We have our storage, our onboard storage. We've got 26 gigabytes of onboard free storage, and we're not using any of it. So when we add media files, like audio files and things like that for shows, that'll obviously need to be stored on the controller, and it'll use this storage here. Next, we can see we're on Wi-Fi. If we are on Ethernet, the connection type would show Ethernet. We have the interface IP address. This is the IP address that it has, its local IP address to your router. This is the router that it's talking to, the interface gateway. And this is the signal strength it's got. We don't have the Wi-Fi access point in this room, so you can see your signal strength is not 100% green all the way. It's actually pretty far away. And then we have some internal temperature information. We can see we're running at 89.5 degrees Fahrenheit. That's well within tolerance limits for the controller. And then some extra information down here. So let's go back up to the top and look at the Start Manual Control button. This will allow you to control your IgorBox controller from the web. So I'm going to press it now, and you're going to see we've dropped into manual control. As you can see at the bottom left, we're now flashing on and off orange. And the orange flashing means we are in manual control. In manual control, it means somebody is controlling the channels directly. It also means that shows will not play. They will not trigger. So a trigger will not happen. And it will not play the ambient. It'll stop the ambient, whatever ambient's going on. So you're now in control of this, in control of this device. We can actually press buttons. This will actually trigger button inputs to other controllers. So later when we link controllers to other controllers, we allow one controller to trigger a show on a different controller. If input 1 triggered a show on a different controller, we can press this and actually do it as if we pressed the button. Down here we can set channels. As you can see, you can see the status LEDs will come on. We can set them to different levels. They will also show the dim level on the status LED. The same is happening for the LEDs on the back of the controller. And if we wanted to zero this out, we can click here and zero it back down. And that's essentially manual control. The cool part about manual control is, again, you can access this page from a mobile device. You can access this page from, for basically anywhere you have an internet connection. So you can stand in the middle of the room and toggle things on and off, see what it looks like. You can stand at the controller, use your phone to toggle things. I use it quite often to figure out what channel is connected to what, right? So if we got a bunch of stuff connected, I'm like, okay, we didn't name these yet. So I'm like, okay, let's turn this up to 100%. Okay, that's that thing that turned on. Great. Okay. All right, so let's get out of manual control and let's move on. We're going to skip over shows and triggers right now because we don't have any shows, and therefore triggers will not be able to do anything. We'll go to events. Events are controller events. So when a controller comes online, when it disconnects, when it crashes, it reports these different events, and you can see all the different events: connected, disconnected, crash, firmware updated, firmware failed, config updated, shows updated, triggers updated, etc., etc. This will show all the events for this particular controller. And let's quickly go over to the home page, and you'll also see that there are, I'm going to refresh it here. You'll also see that the controller events are here on the left, as well as more audit data about provisioning controllers, etc. So you can see that this is on the left here, and if we click on View All, that'll actually take us to this same page here, to the controllers view /events. This will be all the events for all controllers. So that's kind of neat. Let's go back to the controller now. We go to Controllers and click on the controller that we want to look at, and we'll move on from Events to Configuration. Now, the configuration tab is super important when you first set up the controller, and you'll probably never come back to it again after the controller is in place, but there's a lot of useful information in here. So first, I'm going to go back to the start manual control, and I'm going to turn on a bunch of LEDs just to show you what this actually does. So we have a bunch of LEDs on now. We'll end manual control, and we'll go back to configuration. So the first thing is, sometimes it is unavoidable. The controller needs to be placed somewhere in your scene. Maybe it's a space constraint, maybe it's a positioning constraint. And in the past, when you have status LEDs like these, which can be very, very bright, that would be a problem. You need to cover this entire controller in gaffer's tape or duct tape or something, or cover it with a cloth, or cover it with something to make the lights basically not visible to your customers, your guests. With the IgorBox, you can just turn them off like this. Now they're off, and that is a configuration saved to the controller, and the controller is going to leave those LEDs off. The controller is still running, but all the LEDs are off. If we go back over here to manual control, though, once we're in manual control, you see all the LEDs will come back on, and we're in the manual control. Status LED is showing. Set some other things around here, and we'll end manual control, and boom, they're back off. So you can do this remotely, again, from your phone. You can turn your LEDs back on if you need to. And there they are. The next is brightness. By default, all of our controllers are set to 50% brightness. 50% brightness is good and bright. If we bring it up to 100%, save. You really can't tell on the video, but that's incredibly bright. It is blindingly bright. And if the color is not orange, if the color is like blue, I'm pretty sure you can see it from space. So I would suggest keeping it at 50%. You can also dim it down. So if you still want to leave your LEDs, but you want to kind of leave them dim, I find that like somewhere in the 12% range here is a pretty good range for dim LEDs. But 50%, pretty straightforward. Turn them off if you don't want them on. All right, moving on. Front button. So every controller has a button on the front that you can press. We use it for resetting Wi-Fi, resetting factory resetting, etc. But by default, your controller will show stop as the default button mode. What this means is that when a show is playing, not an ambient show, but when an actual show is playing on your controller, triggered show, that front button will stop it and will return it back to the ambient show. That's what the stop button means. It just means just stop playing the show and go back to the ambient. You have a couple other settings here. You have trigger, safety lock, and hard lock. So let's talk about trigger. So if we go back to triggers, these are your two inputs, and you can configure these to trigger various different things. We don't have any shows yet. We'll get to that. But you can see there's no front button here. If we swap this, if we set this now to trigger, you'll see it updates like right away. And we go back here and refresh this page. You'll see now I can assign the front button to trigger something. It's just like any other input. It's sort of our third input. If you have access to the controller, or you have an actor, or you need this button for resetting a puzzle or something, you can set the button mode to trigger. Safety lock and hard lock are really very interesting controller settings. It's a little easier to show you with shows, but we can walk through it real fast. There's an explanation down here at the bottom that explains what these are. However, I'm just going to explain it now. The safety lock is like a lockout tagout. So I'm going to press the button on the front, and you'll see that we now show the purple flashing administrative lock. This means that the controller is going to pause exactly where it's at. So whatever it was doing, it's just going to stop right there. And it's going to stay like this until I press that button on the front again. This is very useful for output controllers that are controlling pneumatics. So you can manually control the pneumatic on to make it run, and then press the safety lock to lock the controller so that manual control, as you can see, I can't manual control it. Nobody can manually control it. No shows will run. Nothing will happen. It will keep this controller in the locked state until I press the button again. And now we go back to nominal. Everything's working the same. If there was an ambient show, it would start playing the ambient show again. This is safety lock. You can toggle it on and off with the front button. Hard lock is very similar to an e-stop, but it is not an e-stop. My lawyers tell me I have to make this disclaimer. IgorBox is not certified for safety of life operations. Do not use it in a safety of life situation. E-stop is not meant for safety of life. E-stop is more meant for our hard lock, and that's why we don't call it an e-stop. We call it hard lock. Hard lock works similar to an e-stop in that when I press the button now, it's going to lock this controller out, and the only way to unlock it is to reboot it. But before I do that, I want to show you one thing down here in the channel configurations. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to start manual control. I'm going to zero these out. And now we're going to go back here, and we're going to go to channel configuration. We're going to cover this in a second, but I do want to talk about this in hard lock. For output channels, you'll see that there is a hard lock safe state. And in the LED controller, this is different than on the output controller. Again, we'll cover the IgorBox output 8 in a later video, so just watch for that, but we're just going to use the LED controller for this overview video. Hold current state means that basically what the safety lock does. So wherever the controller currently is, when you press the hard lock button, it's just going to stop right there and lock exactly where it's at until you reboot it. But let's say channel 1 here is connected to a big light, and we want that light to go to 100% when we go to safe, or when we go to this hard lock state. Maybe channel 2 we want to go to 53%. Maybe channel 3 we want to go to 21%. Channel 4 will go to 100%. Maybe channel 5 needs to be at 0, no matter what, right? So now if I hit save, you can see that we've actually updated the hard lock state, safe state, to these settings. And if I go back to the overview page, you'll see that, and we said channel 5, we'll set channel 5, let's say channel 5's at 63% right now. So channel 5 is going to go to 0. So we're going to see these all change here in a second. I'm going to press the button. I'm going to put it in hard lock state. Now you can see the entire controller is flashing purple. This means that you need to reboot it. But you can also see that when we did that, channel 1 went to 100%, channel 2 went to 53%, channel 3 went to 21%, channel 4 went to 100%, and channel 5 went down to 0. So this is useful in the sense that you can say what you think the safe state is for a hard lock situation. Maybe you turn lights on. Maybe you park a motor. You set the pneumatic to off. I don't know. There's many different things you can do. In an output controller, you can tell it what, if you want it to hold state, you want it to go on, you want it to go off, you want it to power it off, because there's inversions and things. We'll talk about that in a later video. And you'll see that we're now in a hard lock state and there's nothing you can do. So we're going to go ahead and reboot it. There's a reset button just to the left of the power connector, between the power connector and the status LED, but it's recessed so you don't accidentally hit it, and I don't have anything to press in there, so just unplug it, plug it back in. All right, so controller's going to show that it's offline, and we'll wait for it to come back before we go into the next settings. And we're back online. All right, go back to configuration. Now let's go through the rest of the settings. Obviously, we have firmware tracks. Again, stable. I would recommend staying on stable. Beta early access features may break in the middle of your show, which you don't want. We're currently testing those out in the public, so you can choose to use beta if you want. Your Wi-Fi credentials we covered. Now we're going to come down here to channel configurations. You may have to expand it out like this. And now this is where you can name channels, right? So like, let's name this input channel. Let's name this, let's call this actor button. And we're going to name input number 2 foot switch. So the inputs are now named. We come down here to channel 1, 2, and 3 and 4. Let's say that channel 1, 2, 3, and 4, let's set these back, are an RGBW light. So this is our red channel. This is our green channel. This is our blue channel. And this is our white channel. And let's say this is a big spotlight. All right, so channel 5 is spotlight. Now, if I hit save, you're going to see that it's going to update a bunch of stuff on the controller, and we're going to go back to the overview page. Now you're going to see that we have our actor button, we have our foot switch, we have our red, green, blue, white, and this is the source of truth of what the channel names are. So when we go to the shows in a later video, you'll see that these channel names will propagate to the shows, they'll propagate to your logic rules, they'll allow you to name them. You're going to name it on the controller, right? The thinking being that you're wiring the controller, you know what's on that channel, you should set what's on that channel for that controller, and then that propagates through everything else. But you can see these dots here, right? So today, right now, you know, if I go to start manual control and I set these all to some value, you can see that they're all orange on the controller, they're all orange here. Let's do this. Let's set the status indicators to match the color that they are. So we'll choose red, green, blue, white, and let's say the spotlight is purple. All right, now we hit save. You're going to see it update on the controller. Now the controller is showing those colors. And go back to the overview page. You see these colors on the overview page as well. This is very useful if you have like candle lights, you have color spotlights, you have all kinds, like maybe you use color coding to indicate what type of light it is. Maybe it's a panel light, maybe it's could be anything. The point being that now when you look at your controller either from the front or the back, because these same LED colors are on the back at the connectors, when you look at the LED controller from the front or the back, in this case, you're going to be able to identify exactly which color it's connected to, right? So you can set colors, they customize this, and you're all set there. And now, advanced configuration you would probably never need. That'll be something that somebody in support may need to give you something to paste into this page, but that's just extra information. All right, let's move on to technical details, which is our last tab for this video. Under technical details, you'll see that there's this little tab here that gives you some information about the controller itself. Just some technical stuff that is probably going to be used if you reach out to support at help@igorbox.com. They may need this from you, so they'll ask you for the technical details, or they may need to go grab it themselves. And we have a peer map. We'll get to that in a second. And then over here we have firmware management and peripherals. Again, this is mostly for support, so we can better support the controller. But here you can actually see that there are no firmware updates right now. But if you had done an over-the-air firmware update, which would show up right here telling you there's a new version, you could then see the history of those updates. Under the peer map, this again is a diagnostic tool, but I want to show you what it does. Now we only have one controller right now. When we go to the output controller and we have more than one controller, this will make a lot more sense. But I did want to show you this, right? So we're looking from this controller here, which we named Light Panel, and it's going to look for any other controllers that are on the network that it knows about that's part of your studio, and it's going to check to see how quickly it can talk to those controllers. So like what the network connection is internally, so you can diagnose whether or not it can talk and how fast the data transfer is between them. It also will connect your dependencies. Again, we'll see this in a later video about outbound triggers, inbound triggers, outbound logic rules, inbound logic rules, etc. So you can actually see how all of your controllers are interweaved. One of our most important features that we created with IgorBox was any input on any controller can trigger a show on any controller that has a show. So you may have another input. You may have another controller over here that has an input that's mapped to run a show on the light panel. You'll see that by an inbound purple line from that controller into this one. Again, we'll get deeper into the peer map in a later video. So that is the basic overview of adding a controller to your account and what all of these tabs are.